Why is it why is it not a good idea for eighth graders to get in trouble during class?
I think
Should be coming down to you.
I think it's not a good idea for eighth graders to get in trouble, just because I feel like it sets a tone for eighth graders. They're gonna be going into high school. They're gonna be becoming adults pretty soon, and if they start getting in trouble now, it's just gonna kind of set a tone for them to continue to be troublemakers in the future. And if they're wanting to be successful and have a good job, it's gonna really hurt them now, as far as just not setting a good tone for how they're going to be in the future.
What advice would you want to give the incoming eighth graders?
Incoming eighth graders, my advice would be just stay dedicated and start very strong, because I've noticed that students that do really good at the beginning, they tend to be those students that do really good at the end. The students that struggle at the beginning tend to be the students that struggle at the end. I feel if you have a strong start and you have an A and your parents are happy with you and you feel good about yourself, it's going to be motivating. You're going to continue to want to keep your grades strong and keep being successful.
What kind of rules would you like to address for the incoming eighth graders?
What kind of rules?
Yeah.
For PE or for class?
For PE.
For PE? What type of rules? I would say a major problem is hands off. A lot of students, they usually like to mess around, get in each other's faces, maybe slap each other or punch each other a little bit in the stomach. And they say they're just joking around, but I would say most of the fights start off as just joking around with friends, and then they end up, it ends up going a little bit too far and they get in fights. As long as they're dressing out properly in PE, they're coming to class prepared, they're keeping their hands to themselves, they're just showing respect to the teacher, and they're just doing their best, they're going to do well.
Is there something you want the eighth graders to be away from?
Something I want them to be away from, eighth graders. Yes, I would say stay away from bad influences. If you have a friend who is causing you to not do well in class, is causing you to get in trouble, is just bringing you down, I would say they probably should not be one of your best friends, because I've seen way too many really great students end up having friends that were troublemakers and messed around, and almost always, usually, it's not, if there's a person that does really well and a person that does bad, it's usually the person that does well goes down to their level, and then they just kind of get into mischief together. So I would say have good influences, find good people that are gonna push you to want to be successful and get good grades and try hard and everything. Influences is everything at this age for middle schoolers. Find good friends that are going to help you, not hurt you.
Why do you think eighth graders should behave during the end of the school year?
Kind of similar, my answer is kind of similar to the first question, is that you're just setting a tone for going into high school. I kind of talk to my students and I tell them, listen, if you're in my class, it's almost kind of like I'm your boss, and everything that I'm asking you to do is kind of like your job. And if I ask you to run a mile, you're going to try your hardest because you want to get a good grade and all that. And your grade's kind of like your paycheck. And Mr. Jacobs talked about that last year. It's absolutely true. If you're showing up to class on time and you're just learning all those really good habits to keep, showing up prepared, trying your hardest, all that kind of stuff. If you start doing that now, it's going to be so much easier to keep it going into high school, to keep it going into college, and keep it going into your first job. If you cut corners and you mess around and you don't try hard and all of the above, and you show up to class tardy all the time, that's not going to work when you end up having a job one day. If you're tardy now and you keep that habit going into when you get a job, there's no such thing as being tardy with a job. They fire you. And I talk to my kids a lot about, getting a lunch detention and all that kind of stuff. Those are little consequences. When you get older, and you're late to your job and you get fired, or you mouth off to your boss and you get fired, there's big consequences. You lose your job, you lose your house, you lose your car, you have to move in with your parents.